Think about how we play open world video games today. Like, you open the digital map and it is just covered in hundreds of these glowing little icons, you know?
Yeah, like the endless quests and collectibles.
Exactly. Quests to complete, items to collect, skill trees you have to max out. And the underlying goal always becomes clearing those icons as fast as humanly possible.
Right, it's basically a checklist.
Yeah, and you end up just sprinting through this beautiful, painstakingly rendered landscape,
Yeah.
completely ignoring the scenery, just to see a progress bar hit. 100%.
Which is funny because we do the exact same thing with our actual reality.
Oh, totally.
I mean, every hobby, every career milestone, even like Sunday afternoon is treated like an icon on a map that needs to be optimized, conquered, and just permanently checked off.
We're so conditioned to measure the value of an action by how efficiently it gets us to a tangible result.
Yeah, if it doesn't produce something, we think it's a waste of time.
But, and this is where it gets interesting, when you step into the world of Werner Hofstedder, that map and all those demanding little icons, they just completely vanish.
They really do. It's quite a shift.
It is, and that is the premise of this beautifully quiet, really perceptive narrative text called The Amateur by Max and Claude, which is the subject of our deep dive today. Welcome to it, by the way.
Thanks. I'm really excited to dig into this one.
Me too. So our mission today is to unpack the life of this 63-year-old retired bookseller living in Berlin. And on paper, his existence looks, I don't know, aggressively ordinary.
Aggressively ordinary is a great way to put it.
Right. But by dissecting how he lives, we are going to extract some pretty profound philosophical insights about what it actually means to live well. Like the true original definition of being an amateur, and how to find deep meaning in a world that is just so obsessed with constant optimization.
Because the central paradox of Werner's story is staggering once you really, examine it. The text suggests that the secret to a fulfilling life might actually just be learning to do things poorly.
Wait, to do things poorly.
Yeah, to intentionally do them poorly for a very long time simply for the absolute love of the act itself.
Wow. Okay, let's look at how he makes his morning coffee, because this perfectly encapsulates his refusal to optimize.
The coffee routine is so telling.
It is. So he uses a French press,
Right.
And he heats the water to around 94 degrees Celsius, but he doesn't use a thermometer to check it.
Right, which drives coffee snobs crazy.
Completely crazy. Because he knows the internet insists the scientifically optimal temperature is 96 degrees or 93 or 90. But instead of chasing that perfect metric, he just accepts that there are many correct temperatures and, the coffee will be fine regardless.
And he applies this exact same grace to his morning toast, which I love.
Oh, a toaster oven.
Yeah. His toaster oven has this quirk where it always leaves one corner of the bread a little too pale, or it slightly over-browns the left edge.
And most people would just throw the appliance out, right?
Yeah.
Or at least spend 10 minutes fiddling with the temperature dial to engineer this even golden brown.
Exactly. But Werner, he finds the imperfection reassuring. He isn't trying to master the toast or, exert total control over his environment. He is simply experiencing the morning.
Experiencing the morning. I like that. But this refusal to optimize scales up dramatically when we look at his hobbies. Like, Werner has been studying Swedish for 8 years.
8 years?
8 years, and he can barely string a sentence together.
It's incredible.
He struggles endlessly with what linguists call the pitch accent. For anyone listening who's unfamiliar, Swedish utilizes tonal shifts. So the way your vocal pitch goes up or down on a specific syllable can completely change the meaning of a word.
Which is notoriously difficult for non-native speakers to master.
Exactly. But Werner isn't mastering it.
No, not at all. And furthermore, he isn't learning Swedish to relocate to Stockholm or to, advance some corporate career. In fact, he has only visited Sweden once for a grand total of 4 days back in 2011.
That is so wild to me. 4 days, 13 years ago.
Right. He studies it literally just because he likes how the vowels feel in his mouth. He likes the musicality of the sound.
There's actually a character introduced in the text, a Swedish researcher named Greta Lindholm.
Oh, yes, Greta.
Yeah, and she happens to be writing a book about amateur language learners. She interviews Werner and realizes he has achieved this psychological state that most people never reach.
He's completely divorced learning from achievement.
Yes, he persists without any expectation of progress, which taps into the ancient root of a word we just misuse all the time.
We really do.
Think about your own hobbies for a second. Like, if you take up knitting to relax, 2 weeks later, someone tells you to open an Etsy shop.
Or if you learn guitar and you aren't playing gigs or posting flawless covers online, people ask why you are even bothering.
Exactly. We treat the word amateur as an insult, or just like a stepping stone to becoming a professional.
But the etymology tells a completely different story. The word amateur actually stems from the Latin word amator.
Which means?
It translates directly to a lover. An amateur is someone who does something purely for love, not for financial compensation, not for professional status, and not for mastery.
Werner is a lover of Swedish.
He is. And when we strip the pressure of progress away from our passions like that, we fundamentally alter our neurobiology.
Okay, let's unpack this because I'm fascinated by this. I know exactly how my brain works. If I'm trying to learn a language on an app, I want the gold star.
Oh, we all want the gold
I want
star.
the 100-day streak. So what is physically happening in our brains when we drop that desperate need for a reward?
Well, when you are striving for that gold star, your brain is operating on a dopamine craving mechanism.
Okay.
Dopamine is frequently misunderstood in popular culture as just a reward chemical that makes you feel happy. But it is actually a craving chemical.
Interesting. So it's about wanting, not having.
Exactly. It is designed to propel you forward, making you want more, driving you to secure the next milestone. It basically keeps you in a state of mild, perpetual anxiety about the future because you are always chasing a target that keeps moving.
Ah, the treadmill.
The dopamine treadmill, yeah. By removing the goal of fluency from his language practice, Werner unplugs that dopamine craving machine entirely.
Wow.
He drops out of an anxious future and lands squarely in the present. The physical act of speaking poorly is the reward itself.
Which is so freeing. And if stepping off that dopamine treadmill frees you from the pressure to achieve, it totally changes how you interact with everything around you.
Absolutely. It shifts your baseline from trying to extract value from the world to simply paying attention to it.
We see this in Werner's career, too. He spent 23 years managing this small, independent shop called Buchhandlung Siebold.
Right, the bookstore.
Yeah, and during this time, he receives a letter from Martin Siebold, who's the grandson of the original owner. The letter contains an old journal entry from the grandfather, and in it, the grandfather argues that running a physical bookshop is actually a political space.
I love this part. It is political because it actively preserves slowness.
Yes.
The grandfather wrote that the modern world is obsessed with predicting our desires before we even have them. I mean, think about the algorithms governing our digital lives today.
They're constantly feeding you content they already know you will click on.
Exactly, constantly narrowing your worldview into a predictable loop. So a physical bookshop is a rebellion against that algorithmic optimization. It demands that you slow down, browse aimlessly, and allow yourself to be surprised by a book you didn't even know you wanted.
And Werner lived out this politics of attention for over 2 decades. He didn't optimize his sales tactics. He didn't try to upsell customers on the latest, most profitable bestseller.
He actually listened to them.
He did. He listened to the vague, fumbling ways people described the feeling they were looking for, and he slowly connected them with a piece of literature. He cultivated his attention like a muscle.
There is a specific daily practice he does for this, actually, that he picked up from a Japanese book.
Oh, right. Noticing the 3 new things.
Yes. Noticing 3 new things every single day. It sounds deceptively simple, but it requires profound presence.
Give me some examples of what he notices.
Well, he notices a balcony across the street with perfectly symmetrical rows of potted plants. Or he notices the specific acoustic thud his left foot makes when it hits the pavement.
That is so granular.
Or that his summer coffee smells perceptibly lighter than his winter coffee.
Wow.
This practice anchors his mind in physical reality, and it builds the foundation for his entire philosophy on emotions, which he frequently debates with his ex-wife Petra and his friend Henrik.
The contentment versus happiness debate.
Exactly. Werner posits this theory, distinguishing happiness from contentment. Happiness, he argues, is a peak. It is sharp, exhilarating, and bright. But you cannot physically live on a mountain peak. The air is too thin. It is inherently unsustainable. Contentment, on the other hand, is a valley where you can actually build a home, plant a garden, and sustain a life.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, but also a bit challenging. I have to push back here because I really struggle with this concept.
Go for it.
I hear valley of contentment, and my modern, ambition-wired brain just throws up massive red flags.
Sure, of course it does.
Like if no one optimizes, if no one pushes for the peak, nothing gets built. The society Werner enjoys, the trains he rides, the books he reads, the toaster he uses, all of that relies on incredibly ambitious people striving for those peaks.
That's a fair point.
So isn't calling contentment a valley just a polite way of saying you are giving up or settling for less? Isn't his ultra-slow lifestyle kind of a luxury built on the back of other people's hustle?
See, that reaction is the default modern reflex, and it makes total logical sense in a hyper-capitalist framework. We are heavily conditioned to view a lack of ambition as a moral failure, or at best, a parasitic luxury. But we have to look at the philosophy driving him. Werner is highly influenced by the 17th century philosopher Baruch Spinoza.
Okay, bringing in Spinoza.
Spinoza argued that true freedom and joy come from understanding our place in nature and mastering our desires rather than being enslaved by them.
So it's about mastery, not surrender.
Exactly. Settling or giving up implies a reluctant, passive acceptance of circumstances you secretly wish were better. You know, like you want the peak, but you settle for the valley because you were tired.
Right.
Werner is doing the opposite. He is giving an active, intentional yes to his specific, ordinary life.
So it isn't that he lacks the energy or the capability to climb the mountain. He has looked at the mountain, analyzed the cost of the climb, and decided the ecosystem in the valley is actually richer.
Exactly that. Contentment for Werner is not the absence of desire. It is the absolute mastery of it. I mean, he is deeply engaged with the world. He debates complex philosophy. He goes to art galleries. He learns Swedish.
Even if he's terrible at it.
Even if he's terrible at it, building a robust, meaningful life in that valley takes immense architectural intention. He isn't coasting. He has just removed the frantic need for his life to look impressive or productive to an outside observer.
And that intentionality changes the very fabric of how he experiences his days. Because once you stop treating time as an enemy you have to beat, your perception of it starts to warp and change.
It really does.
We see this with his philosophy reading group. The group includes Margaret, Anna, Thomas, Yuki, Gottfried, and Henrik. And they get into this deep debate over the French philosopher Arne Bergson.
Oh, Bergson's concept of duration.
Yes. Can you explain that?
Bergson makes a brilliant distinction that we almost always ignore. He splits time into two categories. First, there is clock time, which is an entirely artificial human construct.
Just the ticking on the wall.
Exactly. It is spatial, rigid, and measured in identical increments, minutes, hours, seconds. But then there is lived time, or what Bergson calls duration.
Live time.
This is how human consciousness actually experiences existence subjectively.
Yeah.
So, an hour spent in agonizing physical pain feels like a lifetime,
Oh, yeah.
while an hour spent deeply engrossed in a fascinating conversation just vanishes in an instant.
Werner experiences this firsthand walking home from the reading group one night. By the rigid artificial metric of clock time, his walk takes exactly 30 minutes.
Right.
But internally, by lived time, he feels completely unmoored from the clock. He describes it as existing in one long present, where the anxiety of the future and the regret of the past just dissolve into the act of walking.
And that shift in perception fundamentally alters how he processes getting older. The group discusses this concept of the human palimpsest.
A palimpsest, right. That's a great metaphor.
It is. A palimpsest is a historical manuscript, usually a piece of parchment, where the original ink was scraped off so the expensive page could be reused and written over again.
Because parchment was super expensive.
Right. But the scraping was never perfect. The old, faded text always faintly shows through beneath the new words.
That was cool.
Werner views himself and the universal process of aging as a palimpsest. The anxious, uncertain young student he once was hasn't been destroyed or lost. That young self is simply written over by the 63-year-old retired bookseller, but is still deeply visible beneath the surface, adding immense texture to who he is today.
Which perfectly sets up the contrast with his friend Henrik.
Oh, poor Henrik.
Henrik is a psychotherapist, and he is spiraling. He is terrified of his impending retirement, terrified of aging, and wrestling with a full-blown existential crisis about death.
He views his life as a countdown timer that is just rapidly running out of sand.
Meanwhile, Werner has this incredible, almost unnerving calm about his own mortality.
We see this climax in a really beautiful scene at the Gemälde Gallery, the prominent art museum in Berlin.
Yeah.
The two friends are walking through the exhibits. They stand before a painting by Vermeer, dissecting the impossible, luminous way the artist captured light. They study a painting of St. Sebastian pierced with arrows and a Dutch still life featuring these dying tulips.
And Henrik just breaks down, doesn't he?
He does. He confesses his profound fear that time is running out, that he hasn't done enough, that he hasn't been enough. And Werner looks at the dying tulips on the canvas and explains this difficult, beautiful truth.
What did he say?
He says that time's finitude, the immutable fact that our time ends, is exactly what makes it precious.
Because if the canvas of our lives went on forever, nothing would have value. The economics of attention require scarcity.
Exactly.
If you had infinite time, you would never be forced to choose what to care about. You could always read that dense novel next century. You could always call your estranged friend 1,000 years from now.
The urgency to love anything, to pay attention to anything, would completely evaporate.
Oh, wow. Choosing to spend an hour examining a Vermeer painting or, just making a bowl of soup becomes a profound act of devotion precisely because you are spending a non-renewable resource to do it. You are valuing that specific moment over infinite other possibilities.
And we see this devotion play out hilariously in Werner's reading habits.
Oh, the Musel book.
Yes. The man is engaged in a years-long, incredibly slow crawl through Robert Musil's notoriously dense modernist novel, The Man Without Qualities.
Years long.
He has been chipping away at it forever, and he actually celebrates finally reaching page 250. He reads maybe 20 pages at a time, and then he just stops. He feels pleasantly saturated and puts it down.
I'm trying to synthesize this because my instinct is the absolute opposite.
How so?
If I know I'm going to die, my instinct is to panic and try to cram 100 books, hobbies, and trips into my weekend.
Ah, the cramming approach.
Yeah. Why does Werner go the exact opposite route? How does accepting our finite nature actually free us from the anxiety of running out of time?
Because Henrik's anxiety, and maybe yours too, comes from viewing time as a container you must frantically pack to the brim before the lid shuts forever. You feel responsible for experiencing everything.
Oof, yeah. Guilty.
Werner views his limited time as a frame. He knows the frame has hard edges. But precisely because it has boundaries, he is relieved of the impossible burden of painting the entire universe.
Oh, I love that. He just has to paint his small canvas well.
Exactly. By accepting that he will never read every book in the world or achieve native fluency in Swedish or live a grand, historically significant life, he is liberated. He is free to fully, deeply enjoy page 250 of Musel because he has let go of the ego-driven obligation to reach page 1000.
So time is short, and the goal is to pay attention and love the process within our small frame. But what does that look like in physical practice?
Like day to day.
Yeah, how do you create tangible meaning in that quiet valley? The text illustrates this perfectly when Werner suddenly gets an uncharacteristic impulse to bake bread.
Oh, the bread baking.
Yeah.
He approaches it like a true amateur.
No bread machines.
No automated bread machines to streamline the process. He buys a basic scale and a pan. And over several days, he immerses himself in the physical reality of the ingredients. He learns the tactile, elastic feel of the dough.
He observes how the yeast responds to temperature, how the daily humidity alters the flour's hydration.
And through pure, unhurried trial and error, by his fourth attempt, he pulls a perfect, crisp, golden loaf from the oven.
Now, his philosophy group had recently been discussing Karl Marx, which triggers a major realization for Werner here. Baking this bread is an act of pure, unalienated labor.
Unalienated labor. Let's break that down for the listeners.
Yeah, for anyone who hasn't brushed up on their 19th century economic theory lately, Marx argued that under modern industrial capitalism, workers become alienated or disconnected from the things they make.
Like in modern corporate life.
Exactly. Think about the modern gig economy or corporate life. If your job is to write code for a tiny feature on a massive app you'll never use, or input data into a spreadsheet for a conglomerate, you are entirely separated from the initial design of the product, the creation of the whole item, and the final use of it.
Your labor is just a fragmented, hollow transaction.
Right. And Werner realizes that baking this loaf of bread is the ultimate antidote to that alienation. He conceives the idea himself. He executes the physical labor with his own two hands, feeling the dough transform. And he consumes the final result.
It is a closed, deeply satisfying loop of meaning, where he is connected to every single stage of creation.
And he doesn't keep that meaning to himself either. He invites his former colleague from the bookshop, a young woman named Elif, over for dinner.
Elif, yes.
They share his freshly baked bread alongside some Turkish pizza she brings over. And Elif is just this portrait of modern anxiety. She works at an NGO. She is hyper-stressed about her career trajectory, dealing with awful roommates, and she is agonizing over her future.
And Werner just sits across from her. He
Yeah.
doesn't offer unsolicited networking advice or tell her to optimize her schedule. His simple, grounded presence acts as a total reset for her nervous system.
We see this dynamic ripple outward through the entire narrative, creating this overarching web of connection.
A huge ripple effect.
Like Henrik, after wrestling with his profound fear of aging, finally finds the courage to retire and discovers real peace, heavily influenced by watching Werner model how to age with grace.
And Werner's ex-wife, Petra, goes through a devastating separation from her partner, Christiane. But she finds immense solace in the prospect of an ordinary, unoptimized future after spending time with Werner.
And Werner himself is moved to act. He finally books a train ticket to Stuttgart to visit his cousin Margit. It is his first time traveling anywhere since his trip to Sweden in 2011.
Which is huge for him.
Huge. And this is the part of the text that hit me the hardest. Werner is constantly reflecting on his life and assuming he produces nothing of value. He assumes because he isn't innovating or changing the world, he is essentially invisible.
Yet his friends constantly rely on him as an anchor.
Yes. His friend Anna tells him he is rare because he knows how to just show up and hold space for people without making their crisis about his own ego. It seems paradoxical. So how does Werner's extreme isolation and his small solitary life actually create this massive web of collaborative meaning?
Well, it ties all the way back to his politics of attention.
How so?
Because Werner is not frantic, because he is not constantly striving to conquer the next peak or maximize his own metrics, he actually possesses the cognitive bandwidth to truly see the people in front of him.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
Right. When Elif is spiraling, he doesn't hit her with toxic positivity. He offers her warm bread and genuine eye contact. When Henrik is terrified of dying, Werner doesn't distract him. He stands in front of the dying tulips and helps him carry the weight of that fear.
He is the calm center of gravity for their chaotic orbits.
Exactly. His solitary practices, the terrible Swedish, the slow reading, the noticing of the three details, those aren't acts of isolation. They're the rigorous daily exercises that build his capacity for presence.
Wow.
He is cultivating a deep, still well of peace within himself. And because that well is full, his friends can come and drink from it when they are parched by the relentless demands of modern life. He provides the quiet, steady canvas, and his friends bring the color. They collaboratively construct meaning just by being together in the valley.
That is beautiful. We set out today to understand what it means to live well, guided by the incredibly quiet life of a 63-year-old retired bookseller in Berlin. What Werner Hofstedder in the text of The Amateur shows us is that a successful life does not require grand ambition.
It really doesn't.
You don't have to optimize your morning routine, and you certainly do not have to monetize or master every skill you touch. A successful life can simply be about reclaiming the title of amateur.
It can be about reading a difficult book so slowly that it takes years. It can be about noticing the specific acoustic thud of your foot on the pavement.
Or just being a steadfast listening friend in the valley of contentment, rather than leaving everyone you love behind just to climb a lonely, impressive peak.
It's about looking at that digital map of your life, covered in all those demanding, glowing icons and progress bars, and realizing you don't actually have to clear them.
You can just close an app.
You can accept the imperfectly toasted bread, mangle a Swedish verb, and recognize that you are already exactly where you need to be. You belong entirely to yourself.
So we want to leave you with a challenge today, drawn straight from Werner's philosophy. Think about your own life. What is one practice, one hobby, or one interest that you can completely strip of all goals, metrics, and achievements today? What would it look like for you to reclaim something just for the absolute joyful love of doing it poorly?